Welcome to our second inductive study in our work here together on Exodus chapter 7, verses 1 to 5. It's a fairly brief text, and it doesn't look like it can be much of a challenge, but that's part of the challenge before us is to develop our inductive study method in such a way that we have a real focused and intentional way into the meaning, the interpretation of this text. So again, we ask ourselves, what are we trying to do? We're trying to answer the two questions. What point is this writer trying to make, and how did they use words to make their point? So we start by observing the words, looking at things and figuring out what it is that the writer is trying to, what point they're trying to make. As I look at this text, it seems to me it falls kind of naturally, first of all, into two sections right here. This thing is one sort of a thing, and this thing is another sort of a thing. So this is the narrator speaking, their introduction, and then here is the report of a speech. Not rocket science, but it's kind of clear here. Here's the speech, the indicators of the speech, and here's the introduction to the speech. But within the speech now, it seems like there might be some subsections. So we have in the first part here, I've made you be your prophet. You shall speak all I command you, your brother. Big emphasis on Moses here in this. But right here at the beginning of verse 3, we have the conjunction but, which introduces a contrast. And that tells us this is sort of one subsection of that speech. But here's another one that focuses not on you, but on, do you see it here? I. Here's what you're going to do, but here's what I'm going to do. And then if we follow that program, it seems to me we've got another unit here, because this is about you, Moses. This is about I, the Lord. This is about the Egyptians. And so we, just by looking at the structure, we can kind of see there's these four subsections. And by looking at structure to the passage, we can start to begin to get a feel for what the point seems to be. So what you will do and what I will do, and what the outcome here will be. Notice again some conjunctions, just as very useful parts of speech that kind of get us into the logic of a passage. Verse 3, we get this conjunction but, shows contrast between the first unit and the second unit here. Part of our question here is, what's the function of this verse 5? The Egyptians shall know, especially if the first part has been about what God, what Moses did, and then what the Lord is going to do. What's the relationship between, what's this last paragraph trying to describe? And might be the relationship between these first few parts and this last part, if this is the desired outcome. Why is God doing all this? It's so that this would be the outcome of it. Sometimes when we're looking at texts like this, we have questions, and some of those questions turn out to be helpful and others of them turn out to be not very helpful. Let's see if we can distinguish between helpful and not helpful questions. Basically, helpful questions are ones that the text can actually offer something to give you an answer, and unhelpful questions are ones that the text just doesn't give you any help. And it's good to pose the question, but when you run into a question and there's no information in the text that can help you answer it, you have to then be honest and use the three dreaded words, I don't know. We just have to stop at that point. So with the question, what's meant by hardening Pharaoh's heart? Well, that's a helpful question, because we've got to sort of sort through and figure out kind of what is meant in the text. But when we ask the question, is it fair that God would do this to someone, that God would harden Pharaoh's heart, you and I might have our opinions about that. But if the text doesn't give us any evidence, then that's a question that leads to a dead end. We just have no way to answer it. And if we keep grabbing a hold of the question and pushing it, we're just leading ourselves in a direction away from the text. The text is not asking that question. It's not giving us any information with which to be able to answer it. The closest answer we get here, why would the Lord do something like that, is that it would have an effect on the Egyptians that would bring about some desired purpose. But if we ask the question, is it fair that God would do this to someone? That's a good and honest question, but not as a matter of interpretation of the text, because the text doesn't give us any information about it. As far as we can tell, it seems to be perfectly fair according to the text. So if we just grab a hold of that and keep going after the answer to that question, it will distract us from what the text does say, because frankly, the text just doesn't give us answers to those that specific sort of question. Why did the Lord harden Pharaoh's heart? The only answer we get from this text is that as a result of it, somehow or another, it would bring about this conclusion that the Egyptians would know that I am the Lord. So that seems to be, we might consider, what was the purpose of the Exodus? If this is the part of the Exodus story and Exodus tradition, what was God trying to get out of it? And why did God do what he did? And you say, oh, it's to save the people of Israel. Well, this text says there are other objectives that God had in mind and that would lead him to do what he did in order to accomplish that goal, which is stated here at the bottom of the text. Well, this is what we're trying to do. Get into the text, get familiar with its words, how it's structured, how the writer pushes things to the fore, puts things in the background, and drives home eventually some kind of a point that we can understand about what God is trying to say through this text. So that's our work on this text. Just 1 hour to work on this thing, and then upload it to the website, and we'll be ready to go.